I was just thinking that you can never go wrong with silence. Ever. There's nothing to disagree with or about, when you are quiet and still and haven't taken a position about anything. Ideas, conceptual ideas are by their very nature, provocative in a reactive way, because everything suggests something that it isn't. The other thing, So, the idea of how much everything can be improved if you don't add any mass to it, right? But just come in silence, in peace, in quiet, as a beginning point, as an orientation. Because that's, whatever that is, that we call quiet or stillness or openness, that's the thing that is least recognized in the human experience. Right? Nobody ever has a problem with peace and quiet. All the stuff that gets introduced into the peace and quiet is activating. So, and then the idea of whatever that is that we call, that the idea that there's something here that's beyond the appearance, that's beyond the thought about what it is, the thought about it, the phenomena of life, right, which is happening all the time. There's something wholly wondrous and wide open about that, and that's always present, but it isn't being recognized largely because the mind has, the human experience is one in which we've trained ourselves to not recognize that, or to disavow that, to deny it, overlook it, right? Because the whole human experience is suggestive of something not like that, of something that's problematic, something that's limited. But fundamentally and inherently, the idea of being alive it's a good idea. Life is an incredible idea because it's unlimited and it is indicative or suggestive of an experience completely beyond all the controversy, and all of that. And whatever it takes to recognize that, to become present enough to recognize it and to adjust yourself to it, to allow it to be and then to influence you, is the beginning of something quite unusual and extraordinary. Something that can be profoundly humbling and helpful and in inconceivable ways. And that's always here. Only unrecognized because the ordinary or the mundane state of human consciousness is to overlook that in favor of a whole set of limited thoughts, perceptions, feelings that all lead away, that by design are designed to lead away from the simple, profound meaning of what words can never say, the unspeakable, beyond words aspect of being alive, of being, not even being alive, just being, So, and if you also think about it, the whole idea of teachings and teachers is really to reintroduce that idea. It's to reintroduce or reorient the mind to the thing that's been here all along, in which there could never be a problem. I mean, that's it. Teachers and teachings don't have any other function but to bring you back to what always was and always will be. Right? Teaching or a teacher that's useful and helpful leads out and away from all that distraction, all that controversial this or that business, into an experience that's wholly acceptable and in and of itself completely benign, non-controversial. It's beyond opposition. In course terms, the idea of a love that is beyond opposites, what can have no opposite. What is that which is all encompassing by its own reality is all encompassing. That which is all encompassing has no opposite, right? Because it's beyond the whole idea, the concept of opposition, which is inherently where all the tension is in the human experience. So, and that state, that constant state of aliveness, of being, is going on all the time. But it doesn't get much airtime. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It doesn't get much airtime because largely, for thousands and thousands of years, apparently human consciousness has not developed or has developed itself along the lines of a way of thinking that's contrary to that fundamental natural state. Right? Everybody has learned how to upset their own peace, how to disturb their own peace. Or else there'd be no need of teachers or teachings. None whatsoever. Because whatever teachings and teachers are about that really have any merit or any substance or meaning to them is really to open awareness to the point at which that fundamental primary experience is realized again. It's remembered again. It's given just an instant of recognition, of acceptance. Just an instant is all it takes, because just an instant of that qualitative shift of experience is all it really takes to recover that most humorous and engaging of all thought that I've been away. Hello. I haven't been here. I haven't really been in on my own experience of being alive. I've been off thinking other thoughts and being distracted and being concerned about things that really don't matter. And all I need do is bring my attention to what matters most, which is that primary experience. It's that experience that's before all the stuff that I think. It's the thing that's happening before I think another thought, or before I think anything. And to really become a witness to that, right? To become present to that, awake to that, is all that's really necessary to recover, to rehabilitate, to restore the mind to its own fundamental state, natural state, that natural state of isness, which precedes all controversy. And the usefulness of prayer and meditation is really to facilitate that, to to bring that orientation or that primary state back into awareness where it needs to be. Because without that, it's not a pretty picture. You know, the world is manifesting what happens in the absence of that simplest of states of recognition. And what happens without that is crisis and catastrophe. So, and the you know, the simple corrective aspect of becoming present is as the means by which the entire memory association having to do with problems is surpassed. It's gone beyond. You know, that primary moment of aliveness, the present, the holy instant, being awake, has seniority over all that. If given the chance, if there's a little willingness, it has seniority over that. There's nothing like the real thing. There's nothing like the energy of holy instinct. There's nothing in all the world of human distractedness that can take the place or compare whatsoever to holy instinct, to the unspeakable nature of being, of aliveness, of creation, creativity, communication, love without opposite. And I wrote a little bit about it, I think, in I don't know if I nailed it yet. I might not have sent it out yet. But, you know, did I send something out today about Bishop Desmond Tutu? Yeah, I probably haven't sent it yet. I know I wrote it. It's pretty good. Desmond Tutu, you know, that African missionary priest, I guess he's a priest, our father in the Catholic Church. He has a wonderful quote where he says, "There's none so hard to awaken as those who pretend to sleep." All right? There are none so hard to awaken as those who pretend to sleep. And that's kind of like his sarcastic overview of human consciousness. You know, that state of mind, that pretentious state of mind by which I don't get it. I don't get the simple and most obvious factor of my own being alive as a phenomenal experience, and in place of that I have my set of preferred biases and issues that get all the airtime, that get all the focus, the energy, you know, like if you go to the gym and you work this muscle, then those muscles that you're working a lot in the gym are the ones that are going to become the most developed, right? Well, what do human beings work on day in and day out in their thought process? What are they giving this infinite power of mind to? You know, if you just...
the doubts and fears.
Yeah, if you just look at that, then they're going to become the most developed aspects of your experience. And if they're problematic or burdensome, it's going to get a little heavy and a little, you know, wearyful,
and
wearisome.
Complicated.
Yeah, but how does that happen? I'm not asking for that. Oh, really? What do you think about mostly during the day? Where does your mind traditionally go And that's all you need to watch and become aware of to see what follows, to understand how this follows that. This effect comes from that cause. And then the necessary capitulation, which is changing my mind, learning how to disengage from my own insanity, my own madness. Right? The need to disengage. When? Whenever I think of it. Because in order to have this experience of a limited, separate life, self, I have to be engaging in a thought process that's in and of itself problematic. So my need for relief, for freedom from that, for escape or salvation from that is all the time. So, you go through this process, given whatever teaching you're working with, where you practice that thing. And what often happens, I think, certainly in the initial stages of it, is that, it's a reasonable idea until the mind recognizes the inherent threat of losing control through this very natural process of becoming aware of what's beyond control. As soon as the mind recognizes that meditation works, or prayer works, or doing a workbook lesson works, how does that controlling, tyrannical, not user-friendly aspect of mind we call ego, how does it respond to that? Well, we won't have any more meditation. Stop that foolish business of prayer or quiet time. Let me put this book down because this book is dangerous to what I consider to be my state of my normal state, that mess I call Jeffrey.
We got stuff to do.
Yeah, we have, we've got work to do here. This is serious. We have important things to get to. None of that trivial stuff that, it's craziness. Leave that alone before you lose your mind. Wait a minute, lose my mind or lose my madness and gain my mind. If whole mind is perfect peace, and perfect peace is abstract or non-conceptual, it would make sense that within my human thinking, I wouldn't understand what that is, but I would benefit beyond limit for moments of choosing that state, even though I know not what it is. It's in my best interest to turn to it in recognition that my resistance to it, or my fear of it, my apprehension, because I can't understand it, is actually the natural part of the process of healing the mind, restoring it to its own natural abstract state, the state of creativity. We spoke a little bit about when you first came in about being in the zone. That zone, the idea of being in the zone is a constant state. That zone will improve everything in your life if you just give it a chance. Allow it to have influence. Another way of saying that is allow life to be life, and in recognition of the fact that what I think to be my life is not my life at all. It's my pain in the ass. Right? So it's in my best, once I can begin to see how all the difficulty arises in my experience, then there's the necessity of undoing that. Now, undoing doesn't mean that I have to do anything other than become conscious or aware of what I am doing. And then practice the only thing I can really make any sense of, which is the idea of forgiveness, the idea of letting go, disengaging, conscious disengagement from my obsessive compulsive addictive mind wandering. And that ultimately is what enlightenment is. Where you just give it a rest. And something else happens. And that something else that happens, that's always happening and will happen to you if you allow it to happen to you, if you give it a little of your willingness, a little chance, produces an empathetic experience that's completely beyond words. May not happen all at once, so to speak, in terms of any dramatic thing, but if you just keep on bringing yourself to that consciously and willingly, something wonderful will happen. Like when I used to, I think I shared with you, I studied with a really wonderful teacher guitar teacher, music teacher, a real maestro down in Philadelphia back in the, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s. And he was a Jehovah's Witness. And the guitar lessons would go for they were 15 minutes, if that, maybe 10 minutes. I drive 4 hours in a car from New Jersey all the way down to Philadelphia for this 10-minute lesson. And the way he taught, he basically said, he was very demanding, but very soft-spoken and no pressure, no raising his voice. It was gentle firmness, And he used to say, if you don't come in prepared if you haven't done the work, I'll know. It'd be very, very obvious, and you'll have to make up the lesson the following week. You'll have to do 2 lessons the next week. And if you come unprepared the second time, I'm going to ask you to come back when you're serious, when you're ready to do this. And he used to say, these were guidelines for what to do during the week in order to really get involved in this lesson, And he used to say, I need 4 hours of you playing every day. And that way I can be assured of getting 1 hour of uninterrupted playing time, experiential playing time. All right, and the 4 hours comparison was, he knew how distracted, most of us are all the time, and how little capacity we have to just quiet down and be present. And but it worked, and it was terrifying. One of the first things I learned in that experience was I didn't have a clue what to do. I mean, his lessons were very clear, but I didn't. It was so quietly confrontational. I'd have to learn these. I'd have to compose. I'd have to create. I'd have to hear something, and not just run my mind. And I quickly learned that if I just did what he asked me to do, if I just sat there for a minimum of 4 hours every day, something wonderful would happen. And it would become clear and noticeably apparent, and unmistakably so, that it would be, I would have moments of like, whoops, that's music. I just heard some music. That was different from everything that preceded it in the previous 2 hours. That was music. And then out of that one moment of recognition of everything was like a string to another dimension. It was like a thread. If I just followed that thread, that little unmistakable thing that just happened, of which I have no words for, music would occur. And at the end of the week, I'd have, something that was like, oh, wow. I don't know what that is, but I like it. And the minute you would go in for your lesson, you'd play that, and basically it wouldn't take much more than 5 minutes, because he had his students focus on very small sections of music, with the idea that if you brought your attention to a very small area, some pretty amazing things, large things, expansively creative things would happen in the context of that very, 3 or 4 measures of musical content. Something clear and original would happen in that. And so, he could tell that right away, when he listened to you play. He knew if you were shucking or jiving. If you did the work and got to that, it was just night and day. There was a feeling to it. There was a quality to it. There was bingo, read you loud and clear. I got it. I hear you. Just like when you play in a club or something, very often if you play something meaningful, someone will say that. I hear you. I feel you. They'll respond to that. Got it. They feel that because it's real. It's authentic. So for 5 minutes, you'd sit there and you'd play this stuff that, I worked away at a whole week, 7 days, minimum of 4 hours a day to discover and document so that I could play it for him. And then the rest of the lesson, be it 5 or 10 minutes, was a Bible lesson, which I was completely disinterested in. But I listened to him out of respect for who he was. He was a wonderful character, and he was a master, and it was, he said very little, and had this wonderful appreciation and sense of what you would discover on your own if you just followed these very simple guidelines. Much in the same way that Jesus says, just read this. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to understand it. Just read it. Let's see what happens if you just read it. And then when you're ready, start doing the workbook lessons. And see if you can be consistent, not overly absorbed or obsessed with them. In other words, every day go on to the next one. Don't worry about it if you don't think you got it, And then let's see, then we'll talk later. We'll see what'll happen. So it's all the same mastery. It's rooted in this unshakable sense of trust that you can't miss getting this. That it's only a matter of time when this thing gets the better of you. This thing called being, pierces or penetrates that thin skin veneer of the ego and brings you to your senses, your sensibilities, and where you begin to have these moments of humility, right? Humility, where you realize it's like, holy shit, it's not how little do I know. I don't know anything. Because if you don't know that one thing, you don't know anything. And no matter how much of worldly stuff you try to grab hold of and hold on to, it just doesn't mean anything without that one senior sense or experience of empathy with your own soul. That unspeakable, beyond words aspect of who you are as God created you. And that all teachers and teachings are really a way and means to return to. That fundamental state of humility, which is really a state of openness. And the process, the only thing I need do is let go of what I think. No matter what shape or form it comes up in. Because all of it is, or constitutes, what Jesus refers to as the block are the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So if I just do this one thing, which is really not difficult, called just let go, forgive, let go, release, forgive, let go, release, forgive, let go, release, that'll happen. And the promise, the idea of the promise of God is that not only is that going to happen, it already did happen. This already happened for you, right? Concurrently and simultaneously in the teaching of the Course, this masterwork of simplicity is the idea that everything you want to happen and that you're gravitating towards, no matter how shyly or cautiously, already happened. You know, God gave you the all of His being in your creation. That's already, you're already a done deal. The idea of getting it or waking up is a fundamental inherited quality that was so in the beginning. And everything that was so in the beginning is so now. And will be in that fictitious interval we call the future when I get it. You know, and the Course really emphasizes the importance of not waiting. Waiting for what? There's nothing to wait for. You are as God created you. You are of that likeness. All those things you long for and desire and hope to attain was given you initially. And that quality of inherent in your being, that fundamental gift of life is non-terminal. Or another way of saying it is, it's eternal. It cannot be contained, it cannot be corrupted, cannot be changed, cannot really be forgotten. That's what Desmond Tutu was talking about, you know. None so hard to awaken as those who pretend to sleep. What God created can't sleep. That's why Jesus refers to this as an impossible dream. All that stuff. You dream a dream, all the while, a dream of separation, of woe and hardship and trauma, all the while safe in God. And the fundamental nature and gravity of inevitable enlightenment, waking up, is that which gradually and at a pace of your own liking, of your own choosing, your own acceptance, informs you as you go that it already happened. All this stuff that my mind is trying to set out into a future was always the case. Hence, I can afford to relax. I don't have to worry or be concerned about when and how or if, because they're irrelevant concepts. Fundamental reality is what it is. Creation is what it is. Or as Ebenezer Scrooge said, an ant is an ant and something else. Something is what a grasshopper is what it is, or something in Dickens' Christmas Carol. So, right, no matter what you may think, it's okay. All the while, it's okay. You know, your life turned out. And the more you can accept the idea of that turnout as something that's completely acceptable to me, perhaps not understandable given my preoccupation with limitation, but through the corrective aspect of atonement, I can learn as I go And what I'll be learning as I go, I'll just be having moments of how it turned out. Of how what was so in the beginning couldn't turn out any other way, but in a way that was consistent with that. Right, so my life experience would become imbued with this prevailing sense of openness and trust in faith in an occurrence completely beyond anything I can conceive of that would reveal itself to me according to my openness and receptivity to being informed about it. Because nothing is hidden. And nothing is in jeopardy. Nothing real can be threatened.
It's only hidden because we're distracted?
It's not hidden at all. It only appears to be hidden.
It appears to be hidden.
Right, because you seem to favor an ideology that argues on behalf of that and reflects on a perceivable level that decision, that thought. I see what I want to see. I don't see what I'm not willing to see. Period.
The first step is desiring to want to see.
Desiring truly. True desire. And it might even precipitate or inspire the idea of what is a true desire? I don't even know what a true desire is.
Is there only one desire?
Well, yeah, there is only one desire. You know, my brother.
A lot of examples of people that just wake up. I mean, you're an example of that.
Well, everyone has that experience.
You weren't there, God. You know, I really want to wake up. I mean, you just...
No, but I may have had moments like that where I was really troubled by the idea that I wasn't awake.
There's a lot of people that don't say that they looked for this. They
Yes.
just got it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's gonna because we're dealing with an unconditional influence.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. Like,
It doesn't matter if I recognize I want it, truly need it, or not. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
Because it already did. And even all of the distracting aspects of egocentricity, mind wandering, eventually they falter. It all disintegrates. It can't be sustained. It's unsustainable. Limitation is by its own nature unsustainable. And in that breakdown is God's accomplishment. Right? When you fail, what becomes apparent to you is God's infallible nature, which is inherent in what you are. Why else do people have nervous breakdowns and in moments of, shocking psychological, emotional breakdown, they have the sense of, holy shit, I am relieved. What the fuck was I thinking? Like that.
Yeah.
Very often, and it's commonplace, people who have these, what are considered to be psychological breakdowns, they have the sense of, I'm the Holy Son of God. I'm Jesus. I'm Christ. Because they are. God had one Son. One creation. One whose name is you. Which is, of course, a collective, interactive, whole experience. That's reflection of the holiness, the sacredness of the unified creation creating. And very often when that person in the midst of this experience of crisis and collapse, when they're feeling better than they've ever felt when they were having it all together, the doctors rush in with Thorazine and all these suppressive medications, because that couldn't be true. Excuse me, the concepts are irrelevant. The experience is perfectly true. That entity, that being, that self has the right to euphoria, to feeling total relief and release from the insanities and the infirmities of human distractedness.
If you wake up very fast, do you find that there's lots of resistance in the environment?
Oh yeah, I did.
Experiencing that, yeah.
Yeah, I did. In my experience, because I had trained everybody to see me in a certain way. I had
Jeffrey.
Yeah, to see me within a certain light and context and state of being, and now all of a sudden, where is that?
Well, yeah, and then they get worried, and then our old way of thinking kind of can get.
It's like, wait a minute,
get worried. Yeah.
Stop. What is this?
Okay, they don't recognize your true self. They're recognizing what you.
Well, or they do, but it's woefully disturbing to their self-concept.
Oh, because it's reflecting.
Well,
them,
if you're true, if you're real and true, what does it do to my unreality? It threatens it.
Of the of all the.
You know how, like in dreams, what was that movie that Leonardo DiCaprio was in about all these dream states? Inception. Where did you all see the movie Inception?
No.
It didn't make any sense to me.
Well, okay.
It was really high.
All right. Well, in it, I mean, one of the, these are like this cadre of characters who operate in dreams. Their expertise is dreaming. But what they notice in these dreams is that as the dreams unfold, they become more and more problematic. In other words, once the characters in the dream, which are just reflections of what they think, as those characters become aware of their presence and they're not being these elusive, made-up characters, they begin to attack. They begin to attack these dream weavers, so to speak.
It's very like in the Matrix, too.
Yeah.
Agents. Matrix. Once they realize your agency, they start
As
coming
you're
out.
waking up, they come attack you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to prevent you. Yeah.
You're a threat to the system.
Yeah, you're a threat,
Okay.
but the system is your own making.
Yeah, you made the system.
You trained everybody to see you in that way. So now, as you begin to get a sense of that, then and the deeper aspect of how I can't really be threatened, right? I can't be hurt. I can't lose anything. I don't have anything to lose because I have nothing to gain. Then, I'm all just the way I am is all right. Then what happens is you begin to express other qualities which are non-defensive. They're not fearful, right? You become patient with people. You allow them to have their experience. What difference does it matter to me what you think? It's up to you.
You have no investment.
Your thinking is affecting you. How do you like it? It's of no concern to me, right? And that becomes the basis for a new kind of exchange, a new kind of interaction where a different energy is being shared that's non-defensive. It's not threatened. It's not fear-based. And non-defensiveness are the undoing of fear reveals what? What's beyond fear?
Love.
Yeah. And in the presence of love, what does love beget?
Love.
Yeah. Love, love begets love. Love activates love. Love acknowledges love. It respects love. It sees only itself everywhere it looks. And so effectively what happens in time is those relationships that seem to be indicative or frozen in time and limited in some way, they become impacted or affected by this greater non-threatening presence, energy called life, love, And all of a sudden, everything shifts. And, now what was upsetting or disturbing, becomes less so, But, I had a friend who was concerned, and he felt in his, misperception or fearfulness, he thought, he maybe needed to call the men in lab coats, regarding the way I was thinking, and
You were thinking, or he was thinking?
well, ultimately it would be what he was thinking, but from my perspective, it would have been about my thinking projected onto him, right? But, there was a moment, I don't know, maybe a month or two down the pike in terms of time, where he said to me, for a while there, I thought, you were in need of help and that you were losing your mind. And he said to me, but now I know you weren't, he felt what I was saying, it was irrefutable what I was saying. I was expressing something universal, something no one could really have a problem with. And it took a little while for him to, I guess relax with it, so to speak, so that, it didn't appear to be upsetting or threatening to him, or such a big deal. It was just okay, So I think everybody goes through some version of that, and it's just part of the transition. It's just part of that shift, that movement, to a more natural, organic state.
What do we keep in mind, and what do we do when the resistance keeps getting stronger and stronger, so we don't get thrown off course back into ego garbage?
Pray, ask for help, Holy Spirit, do your workbook lesson. I often speak about how, a lot of time during each and every day, I'm thinking in terms of, I'm okay. I'm safe. I don't have anything to worry about. Because my mind is still prone to rushing off into episodes of unnecessary concern and worry and
Fuckery.
Yeah, it's mischievous stuff, distraction, and whatever it takes. I mean, my workbook lesson today is freedom's creation promises my own. Freedom's creation promises my own. I'll read it, but freedom's creation promises my own, right? It begins with the idea that if God is free, it's not possible for me not to be free, and it doesn't matter what I think. And understandably, if I think in terms of imprisonment or being bound, I'm going to have an experience that's upsetting or unnatural to me. It's not going to be comforting. So it's in my best interest to shift, to change my mind, to really return my mind to thoughts that are more reflective, or that are reflective of a true experience. I need to train my mind to think differently. I need to emphasize the idea of miracle-mindedness, miraculous thinking. I need miraculous concepts if I'm going to think conceptually. So that energy beyond the concepts, that the essence of aliveness, of miracle, miraculous presence, creativity, can impact and affect, can get in. So some light can get in so that I can feel who I am and what I am. And then, go to the bank, write a check, get my hair cut, make a reservation for Thanksgiving. I don't know, whatever it is that I need to do. Practice guitar today without getting obsessively, compulsively, addictively involved. So I could just play and have that be enjoyable and productive, no matter what I think. Just, learning how to just go with it. This is okay. There's nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with this. Ever. As a primary influential experience that would level the playing field, that would in some way make things right or promote the potential for rightness to occur. Right? So that fear could be undone. Not through any Herculean efforts of trying to do something, but just through the natural influence of loving presence, which is what I am, which is what you are. Letting life to enter in, letting love to enter in, letting light to enter in, and inherent trust and faith in that, no matter what I think. So, we can look at that lesson because it's beautiful. It's no better than the lesson you looked at today, but it's one I looked at today. Sure.
What number is that, Jeff?
279. Sure. Yeah, I got it right. Creation's freedom promises my own. So, everybody there? Mm-hmm. Creation's freedom promises my own. Yeah, and the previous lesson, 278, is a gem too. If I am bound, my Father is not free. If I am bound. Right, Jesus talks about in the Course, the idea is that everything you do to yourself, you do to God and me. Do you remember that? Have you read that in the Course?
I think so. I heard that.
Yeah, everything you do to yourself, you do to God and me. As a way of saying you're affecting everything all the time. So, can you help me out here? Can you give me a little help here in the business of right here, right now, which is God's business, holy instant. So in the previous lesson, it starts with the whole idea is based on if I am bound, my Father is not free. Suggesting the idea that if limitation is true anywhere, if imprisonment, if burden, if sickness, if death is true anywhere, then it's true everywhere. Right? Because life is a whole experience. It's unanimous. It's not one way and another way. It's one way. So, he's presenting the idea that, when you say you're imprisoned, you're really, declaring God Almighty, creator of all creation, to be not free. So, if I accept that I am, and I'm reading 278 now, if I accept that I am prisoner within a body, if I accept that I am a prisoner within a body, that I am a body, in a world in which all things that seem to live appear to die, then is my Father prisoner with me? It's sort of like saying, well, God died. God is dead. Almighty life is dead. I mean, that's a pretty serious accusation. And this do I believe when I maintain the laws that the world obeys, must I obey. The frailties and the sins being errors, which I perceive are real and cannot be escaped. Okay, they cannot be escaped from an egotistical point of view, because the ego is the embodiment or the miscreation or the misprojection of the idea that the truth isn't true. So from an egotistical, separate self dream state of mind, everything I think is going to be a little smelly, a little suspicious, right? Because it's all by design made to obscure, to prevent or cloak or cover reality. Right? That's what the human state of what we call ignorance, denial, and resulting ignorance is. It's a state that doesn't exist.
Because it was born of this dream that we're in.
Because or another way of saying that is because it never was born. It's impossible, because that state is inherently impossible. Just like my Father is not free. Is that possible? That God, who is the Almighty, the Creator of the infinitudes of life, is it possible that He be bound or limited? No. But I do recognize that if I think I'm bound, then I may not recognize how impossible that is. Because I've already decided that the impossible happened. I already made that decision, and therefore it would only follow that my mind would distort what it sees, because it's already made a decision to do so. It already decided to not see, to not recognize, to not know, and in place of that, perceive. So everything I perceive is suspect. And this do I believe when I maintain that the laws the world obeys must I obey. The frailties and the sins which I perceive are real and cannot be escaped. If I am bound in any way, I do not know my Father nor myself. All right? Because it's a unanimous experience. You can't have one without the other. If you're enslaved, then there is no freedom, or God is enslaved. If I am bound in any way, I do not know my Father nor myself. And isn't that what happens when you think in terms of, I got a problem? When you think in terms of, I am limited, I have problems, you've already decided not to know the reality you are and the source of that reality, who is Almighty God. You've already engaged in sleight of mind, denial. You won't see. You won't see the Almighty beauty because you decided not to see it. You decided against it. If I am bound in any way, I do not know. I cannot know my Father or myself, because I made the decision not to know the thing I am. You with me? Everybody with me? You don't have to believe this, but, and I am lost to reality. I'm lost to reality. For truth is free, and what is bound is not part of truth. What is bound is not part of truth. So don't you blaspheme. Right? Speak no evil, see no evil, do no evil. Don't speak against reality. Don't think against reality. It's not a crime. It's just gonna mess you up.
Cause and effect.
yeah, it's going to misdirect your experience. You're going to get that effect, even though that effect is nowhere to be found. Doesn't exist in creation. This is an impossible dream. And dreams, by their very nature, are that which is not real, that which is not happening.
What's the difference between, all right, don't think this, don't think that, and Catholicism, which basically says the same thing?
Well, that's true. Everything does say the same thing if you look at it from an awake state of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, but
there is no difference.
I don't want to think this, I don't want to think that. How is that freedom?
Well,
I mean, how am I walking between these sharp thorns in my life?
Well, yeah, because look,
and saying, "Oh, that's freedom."
Look,
I mean,
I think whatever I think, right?
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I think whatever I think, but I accept I am responsible for my thoughts. Mm-hmm. I'm responsible for them. So whatever I'm thinking, I'm maintaining an awakeful, mindful overview of what I'm thinking.
Sure.
Because who I am is not the thought I'm thinking.
I get you. But, we could listen to the tape, but when we say, think no evil, it sounds like a priest wagging his finger at me. I mean, that's what it sounds like.
I'm just using these references for exactly the way you refer to them now, because they are saying the same thing, but in a different way, and in generally a way that's largely misunderstood.
Different context.
Yeah. Jesus says all throughout the course, you're free to think whatever you want to think.
Yeah, what's the difference?
It doesn't really
affect
your
you.
thoughts.
It just affects your feeling about it.
But if you think, it might be of use and benefit and helpful for you to know that you're responsible for your thoughts, and by the way, your thoughts are going to have effects.
Mm-hmm. You can have a better dream, is what you're saying.
Well, you can have a better dream for as long as you seem to dream.
Right.
And gradually and consistently become acclimated to moments that are beyond my dreaming.
Sure.
Instants of wakefulness that are unmistakable and powerful in their impact and clear as the difference between night and day. And in each one of those episodes or intervals of being awake, there becomes a greater gravitational, but it's beyond gravity, attraction to this prevailing state of equanimity, mm-hmm. of equality, of perfection, of grace, called holy instant, holy presence, holy self, heaven now on earth, as it is in heaven, no longer separate states. Mm-hmm. And in that process, what becomes apparent to you in ever more clear episodes of continuity is that my dream is irrelevant. I'm not even dreaming. I'm just awake. Like what's that other quote I'm just remembering now, that they asked Buddha, Buddha's walking on the roads wherever he was. And whenever he was there, and people are seeing this character is zoned. He's in the zone. Something's happening. He's like, they don't even know what's happening, or how to describe it, but that guy is, So they ask him, teacher, what are you? Are you a teacher? He says, no. They said, are you a guru? He says, no. Are you a deity? He says, no. And they say, well, what are you? And he says, I'm awake. That's enough. Because it's true. You are here. And you are here as God created you, and not at all as you think yourself to be. That's the aspect that isn't happening and never happened and could never happen, and thank God Almighty.
Yes.
That the dream was a dream. It didn't happen. And the more moments you're willing to concede or align yourself with the fact of the matter that I'm happening, not my dream, the more you begin to have that experience of I'm happening and I'm not dreaming. And your life becomes an episode of that memory, a continuation of that original memory in which dreaming was never possible. This didn't happen. There was never a fall from the Garden of Eden. Nothing was forbidden. Nothing happened that was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Nothing altered.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right, so, and I am lost to reality, for truth is free, and what is bound is not a part of truth. But truth knows no opposite. So there isn't anything that's not part of truth. There isn't anything that's not true. There isn't anything that's not perfect love. No matter what it looks like or how your mind frames it. And then the second part of this exercise, which says, Father, I ask for nothing but the truth. And, you know, I would throw in there the idea, but I don't have any idea what the truth is. But I don't need to have a conceptual thought about what the truth is so that I can ask a question that seems to reflect that conceptual truth, because truth is non-conceptual. It's not thing-oriented. It's not at all like, although there was never a moment when any of this was not true, but not as I conceive of it, you know? The only thing happening is the love we're sharing. That's it. And there was never a time when that love was absent or not sufficient or insufficient in any way. Never. It was okay, you know, just you were dreaming. That shit didn't happen. Father, I ask for nothing but the truth, although I acknowledge I know not what that is within my conceptual mind. I have had many foolish thoughts. Many foolish thoughts about myself and my creation, my life, and have brought a dream. I seem to have brought a dream of fear into my mind. This seems to have happened, although I completely and wholeheartedly acknowledge it's impossible. God's Son cannot dream. Today I would not dream. I choose the way to you instead of madness and instead of fear, for truth is safe. And only love is sure. The only thing you can be sure of is your own loving nature and the loving reality and nature of all things. And that's the key that unlocks the misery, the mysterious misery, you know, of opposition and conflict and evil versus good. There's no adversity. There's no controversy in holy instant, you know, in the mind you share with God. And it's only your acquiescing to that state of mind that returns you to that state of empowerment by which you observe and see reflected back to you the truth of that. Where everything becomes, you know, it becomes somehow part of that theme of being informed of, like, this is heaven. It's good. It's all good, you know. All right, so we're almost done here. And then I'll just read this last one, the one I thought I was going to read first, but I didn't. Creation's freedom promises my own. The end of dreams is promised me because God's Son is not abandoned by his love. Only in dreams is there a time when he appears to be in prison, where the Son appears to be in prison and awaits a future freedom, if it be at all. Yet in reality, his dreams are gone now. His dreams are gone, with truth established in their place. Right? You know, free will does not mean that it's up to you to establish a curriculum, only what you want to take at a given time. Yes, yet in reality, your dreams are gone, with truth established in their place. God gave you the all that he is. And that's powerfully, fundamentally, and blazingly true and observable to anybody who wants to see it, to any mind that would see it, that would receive it. So you just have to get your mind in accord with reality, and that's your responsibility. Nobody can do that for you, right? Saviors don't manage your fear for you. They encourage you to manage it because you're the author of it. Fear doesn't really exist. If they were to really do something as some expression of you can't manage it yourself, it would diminish you. You know, it would deprive you of an experience you have to discover for yourself, which is that I made this up, I can let it go. I made a big deal of this, I can let it go. So only in dreams is there a time when the Son of God appears to be in prison and awaits a future freedom, if it be at all. Yet in reality, his dreams are gone, already and always gone, with truth established in their place. And now is freedom his already, yours already. Should I wait in chains which have been severed for release? When God is offering me freedom now? Now, I've had many people in this course argue on behalf of, waiting in chains. Because, it couldn't be that simple. Right. But yet, how could God offer anything that wasn't just flat out perfectly simple and acceptable? And how could a perfectly benign, perfectly loving creator offer you anything that would be difficult or hard to figure out? It's just classic egotistical thinking, not sane, not true. Just, conceptual, world-based, delusionary-based, fear-based mind wandering. And then the final part of it, I will accept your promises today and give my faith to them. That's that shift, right? That shift from having faith in what I think to having faith in an authority beyond my own making. Right? God created me. I didn't create God. That's important for me to know. It's important for you to know. That's what is required. You need to understand that in order to be humble before thy Lord, thy Creator. Your beloved source. You need to understand that you're like him. I will accept your promises today and give my faith to them. My Father loves the Son whom he created as his own. Will you withhold the gifts you gave to me? And then I'm going to send this because a lot of these thoughts that I'm having I did write down today, and in the Bible it says God is not mocked in man. Well, what does that mean? God is not mocked in man. It means, you can put whatever spin you want on it. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact of what you are and who you are. Mm-hmm. And my great need to be humble before that reality, that presence, that truth, that light, that perfection, that gift, that aliveness, that God created forever within me as myself. I need to know what that is in order to escape the effects of my own fantasies, fanciful mind wandering. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's not hard. It seems to be difficult only because I'm a little hard-headed. I have a tendency, if it isn't hard, I don't see it. I don't recognize it. It isn't anything. In order for me to recognize it, it's got to be a little hard. I think you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, the thing is okay. Let me choose not to be the hard-headed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Why not?
that's right. You know, that's, you know, God is continually offering you, making you an offer you can't refuse. And if you do refuse it, whoa. Woe to you. You know, you're going to hurt. And, you know, everywhere throughout the entire course is the same thing. You know, God's Holy Son could never suffer but through his own mischievous thought. No one can deprive you of anything. No one can do anything. You can't be hurt other than through your own thoughts against your own reality. It's a pretty good deal if this business of truth. Well, okay, so then if that's the case, let me see what it'd be like to spend a couple of weeks of being a little more humble and siding with truth, even though I don't know what it is. Let's see what happens over the course of the next 2 weeks. How about if I sit down and I play guitar tonight or tomorrow and try something else other than it being hard? Why don't I just play? And let's see what happens. Under the auspices and under the influence of something beyond my own thinking. You know, this idea of a living presence, of a living infinite intelligence, infinitely loving being, who is God, the all in all, in which there could never be a problem. And how might that affect the circumstance I think myself to be in, whenever I think myself to be in that circumstance? I don't know. Let's find out. I'm interested in that, as opposed to just going along with my predictable, usual states of mind, right? Where, I know it's going to be a pain in the ass, or it's going to be this way or that way. How would I know anything about the way anything is going to be? And wouldn't I be better off finding out, being open enough to discover something else other than my own predictability, my own repetitive, obsessive, compulsive repetitiveness? I mean, that's where the creativity is. You know, that's where life happens in the openness, receptivity associated with let's see what happens. When? Now. Let's see what's happening, other than what I think to be happening. There's got to be another way. I mean, think about it. That's how the whole Course in Miracles came into being. All Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford realizes that there has to be something more than this dreadful, predictable, repetitive, messy thing called being a psychotherapist or, a psychologist at Columbia University in a department of scientists who couldn't get out of their own way. That's all they thought. There had to be another way. And the other one said, yeah, there must be. And that was the beginning of the unfoldment of whatever this is.
What better place for that to happen than at a university like Columbia, where you have the best and brightest, or many good and bright minds all just...
Yeah, exactly. Because, and what we discover in the context is how literally in an egotistical state of mind, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to be good. Another way of saying that is being smart is not enough. Being at the head of your class is not enough, There's the thing that everybody's wanting and longing for is not in that system, but beyond that system and inherently within you. And if you get with that, then all that science and all that smartness can have some practical utility. Helen, I'm sure, shared many miracles with millions of people all over the world, either directly through her teaching of the Course, or indirectly through her channeling of the Course and it going out into all these regions of the world. I mean, it's an unbelievable phenomenon. So, and that's what you're being called to. That's what's being requested of you. Not in any particular form, that you just be a little willing that this experience you cannot conceive of can enter in and have its way with you. Teach you of itself. Help you who are in need of help. And then through that process you discover this inconceivable, unfathomable nature that God gave you. You discover the presence of the Almighty within yourself, as yourself. Who would have ever thought that in the middle of the tempest in that teacup was the creator of the universe, fulfilling an ancient promise that in reality was never unfulfilled.
I don't get it.
Perfect. Yeah. You had me worried there for a second. I thought I had an answer to a question. And Lord knows if there's the one thing I've learned is that there's, yeah, that's how you get it, right? That's how to get it, is realize I don't get anything. I don't get anything. That's how you get it. That's the moment at which the emperor really has no clothes. There is no ego. God is the all in all. Hallelujah! Thank God Almighty. It's all good. I can laugh. I can relax. I can actually just enjoy that, this, and whatever.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah. And that's a good metaphor and a good way to segue into the spirit of Thanksgiving. That's really all it is. As a potential state of mind that can raise everything up into something of practical and existential benefit to all. And through you, because you had a moment in which you were willing to realize, yeah, I'll do that. I'll facilitate that. I don't know how, but I'll go along with that. I'll be the one. Yes. Yeah, okay. Let's go. I'll get up and dance to that, It's a deal, you can't refuse. And all you have to remember is that you didn't refuse it. You accept it. You are here. You are that infinite potential. That's what you are. And it has never been absent or missing. Jesus says in the Course, the only thing that can be lacking in any situation is the love you withhold. But you are the love that could never be withheld. So it was never missing. And all moment of truth, all holy instant is the present revelatory reflection of the reality that the only thing that ever happened was reality. And it was good for every living thing without omitting or excluding anything. No one got hurt. Nothing was lost or damaged. Nothing was ever threatened. Nothing real can be threatened or has ever been threatened. Nothing unreal exists. I'm safe. Herein lies the peace of God, which will unfold and reveal itself to you as expansively, as dramatically, and as uniquely and wonderfully as you're willing to see it, to have it be your source of information. I recommend, highly. You know, there's nothing like it in all the world. And it's going to happen anyway. You cannot, you know, you can't stop this, nor could there be anything in you that would attempt to stop it, no matter what you may think. So it's kind of like that scene in the end of Star Wars where Obi-Wan Kenobi is having that little saber light fight with Darth Vader, and he realizes, there's nothing to fight over. He withdraws his saber, and he says to Darth Vader, he says, if you strike me down, I'll only become more of what I am. I'll only become stronger. I'll only become more of a influence. And of course, you know, Darth Vader can't help himself, so he takes the swipe and strikes him down, but lo and behold, a miracle is born, you know? You know. So.
I always hated that scene.
Yeah, of course.
I was like, no. I was with Luke in that sense.
Yeah, because it's hard to, from an egotistical perspective, it's hard to give up the idea that I don't have to vanquish fear, that I don't have to be victorious over it, that I don't have to conquer it. But love doesn't love conquers by not conquering anything, because it's not in contest with anything. It doesn't recognize anything that isn't like itself.
And then later he comes back when Luke's flying down the trench of the Death Star, and he tells Luke to let go.
Exactly, you know.
And in the kind of echoing of what he himself did when he sacrificed.
Exactly.
Himself. And then Luke
worked then,
shot.
It'll work now. And not by overcoming or striking down anything, but by providing some practical response to whatever seems to be necessary. But the response would only be a reflection or an echo of a greater reality beyond the form of whatever seemed to be required. You know, only in illusion are miracles necessary. In heaven, there are no miracles. There's no need for the miraculous, because everything is that state that gives rise to miracles. Only in a state of apparent dreaming would miracles seem to be required to undo or correct these traumatizing images, which could never really have happened. So the miracle worker presents evidence of what's beyond the need for evidence, which is what every miracle really speaks on behalf of or reflects, is that state beyond the need for miracles. It's all cool. It's all good. Nothing to worry about. It didn't happen. Which, of course, is contrary to, the overall state of distraction, which is predicated and rooted in the idea that I need to be very afraid. That fear is justified. But all that seems to indicate is that state, that decision or thought seems to cause the perpetuation of more of that state. It doesn't have any utility to it. It's counterproductive. If fear really worked, then you would have that moment of being afraid, and that would be the end of fear, and fear would have been dealt with at that, and that would be the end of it. But the decision that justifies fearfulness or insanity only causes the continuation of that reflection, that false reflection. doesn't have any practical utility to it whatsoever. And that's why I think, was it Roosevelt who said during World War II, you know, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Because he realized, you know, everything else we can just deal with and set right if we just don't panic. You know, don't terrorize ourselves and each other. There's a way out of this. Let's find it together. In fact, let's start right now. Okay. Anyway.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, it was great. You know, I'm so delighted that you guys came out. All